Hello one and all, welcome to Seen Through Glass, and welcome down to AV Engineering, the heroes that look after my 360. Can you believe it? I've owned this car now for a year. Time flies when you're having fun. I feel like I haven't spent enough time in my dream car, but I have had some amazing adventures in it. And right now, it's down here having its annual service. Now, when I dropped the car off, I was like, oh, guys, the car's fine. It's been working great. Yes, I still had the sort of mysterious engine light, and there were a couple of little niggles that I wanted them to look at. But in my mind, it was all kind of minor aesthetic things, if anything. However, a couple of days after I dropped the car off, I did get a call from Harvey down at AV Engineering saying, oh, Sam, we've discovered a few more issues with the car. Aldous, the mechanic who's looking after things, has an eagle eye and an attention for detail that really can't be beaten, and he's managed to find some things that really needed to get fixed. So I'm going to stop talking, I'm going to find Aldous and have him explain exactly what he found with my car, the issues that were lying under the skin and needed to be resolved. So yes, let's go find Aldous. Aldous, mate, thank you so much for helping me out with this video. You are in far better position to talk about this car than I am, which is embarrassing. So please, let's start. What was the first sort of issue that you found with the car?
Well, the first thing we looked at was that you reported a soft clutch pedal in Monaco. So we took a look at the clutch and the mechanism for engaging and disengaging the clutch. And we actually found that the clutch release bearing was leaking clutch fluid, which would have been why you were feeling sometimes the pedal going soft.
Absolutely, because yeah, in the traffic in the hills of Monaco, I was like, oh my god, I'm about to lose my clutch, it's going to be so expensive. But it wasn't actually the clutch wearing out,
no,
it was the sensation.
It's just a sensation. So when you put your foot on the clutch pedal, it's got a hydraulic cylinder in it that pushes fluid from the pedal all the way through to the back of the car to the gearbox and pushes against the clutch to open and close it. The release bearing is what actually acts on the clutch, and it was leaking fluid past. So when you put your foot on the clutch pedal, most of the pressure was going to open and close the clutch, but some of it was leaking out, and that's why it was feeling a little bit soft. It's fairly common. Unfortunately, it's quite a big job. It's a 10-11 hour job because you have to take the gearbox off. And there was a number of other things that we dealt with whilst we were there. But if you look over here, we've got the old parts. So this is the old release bearing. This is the bit that actually, if this is the clutch, it moves backwards and forwards and pushes onto the clutch as you push your foot on the pedal. And you can see that it's soaking wet as all the fluid's been leaking past it. And then this is the reason why it's been leaking. This is the flange that the bearing sits on. I don't know if you can see this, pick up this light line on here, but this is the score mark. So as it's moving backwards and forwards, this is actually snagging up on the release bearing and allowing the fluid to go past. So we took the gearbox off, replaced this. Whilst we were there, we looked at some other bits and pieces. This little piece of metal is called a clutch block. This distributes the hydraulic fluid around between the pedal and the bearing, and you won't be able to see it, but it's got a hairline crack in it. So we replaced.
Can I ask, how did you see it?
We know that they crack, so we look at them very, very closely. So we clean them up and look at them. You can actually put some crack spray on it if you're not entirely sure, but any signs of cracks starting to appear, we just change them. They're super cheap. This is 30 odd quid. So it's worth, rather than chance it, we replace them, because the last thing you want is to be driving along, this to open up, and then you would just lose all the fluid and you'd lose the clutch completely.
So that's what I was going to ask actually. So if all of these parts failed, what would have my worst case been? The gearbox would have just sort of self-imploded, or
not
just
at
loss?
all. You just would have had a flapping clutch pedal and no gears whatsoever. Okay, well that would have not been much fun on a hill in Monaco, or really in London, or anywhere really. So. Absolutely not. The other thing that we did whilst the gearbox was off was to have a look at the gear change mechanism itself. So between the gear lever and the gearbox, you've got two cables and a number of bushes and linkages between that. And what we found on your car was that the gear change was getting a little bit sloppy. So what we did is, because we had everything out in pieces, we stripped it down and we replaced a number of bits. We've replaced a few of these bushes here that sit on the gearbox, and you won't be able to tell, but there's a lot of play in there. And then this little plastic bush sits under the gear lever itself, and that's, you can't even see it, but it's got a crack in it. So when you start moving around, this opens up, and you get movement before anything happens in the gearbox. So we've replaced all this. We've replaced this with an upgraded and metal part from Hill Engineering, and now the gear change is as tight as it would have been when it left the factory.
Amazing, always good to know. So that was our first sort of big gulp moment. What else did you find with the car?
Well, why don't we jump in and talk about the air conditioning? What we found is that your air conditioning compressor was leaking. So the way that we detected that is that we use an ultraviolet light and pass it over all of the air conditioning components. And the reason we use ultraviolet light is because inside the gas there's dye, ultraviolet dye. So if any leaks show up under the ultraviolet light.
Okay.
And we found that your air conditioning compressor was actually was leaking in the middle between the two. And if you jump around here, I'll show you. I've got another AC compressor. This is not. This one isn't off the oil car. This is actually off at 430. But the compressor's in two parts, and in between here there's a big seal inside here, and that fails and it leaks the gas out.
Oh wow, okay. So basically wasn't working effectively.
Wasn't working effectively.
No wonder I was sweating so much.
And over time, you'd have lost your gas and then the AC would have stopped working.
Okay.
So the remedy for that is, the best thing is a new compressor. Fortunately, your warranty company picked the.
We're going to get on to the absolute heroes at my warranty company.
Big ticket item, not necessarily that difficult to fit. It's a bolt-on, bolt-off job, but it needed to be done. The next thing that we looked at was your engine warning light. Again.
Yeah, that just basically is always on.
Well, unfortunately, engine warning lights for Ferraris or Italian cars of this era are just a fact of life.
Yeah, I just got used to it. It was my friend. I enjoyed it really. It kept me company.
We're hopeful that we've actually we've narrowed it down to a couple of issues. It was reporting a leak in the fuel evaporation system, which actually was a hose down here that had come adrift. And the other issue that the ECU was reporting was a slight misfire on cylinder number 8.
Sounds expensive.
Well, actually, no, it's actually turned out to be very straightforward.
Okay.
We took a look around. We'd obviously previously replaced the coils, the spark plugs, did a few other tests. Whilst the gearbox was off, we decided we would pull the inlet manifold off and take a look at the inlet manifold gaskets, because I remember in the last video we tried to test them and they were okay. And actually what we found was that one of the inlet manifold gaskets, the one on cylinder number 8, was actually fitted back to front. This is an inlet manifold gasket. You can see it's a trapezoid shape, and although it looks symmetrical, if you flick it over, it actually turns around and it changes the profile. And what it means is that the effective sealing area is reduced by about 50%, which meant that this, or the one on cylinder number 8, actually wore through very quickly, more quickly than all the others, and it was sucking air in, and you had a lean mixture and it wasn't firing properly. So quite a quick job, because the gearbox was off. We had good access. I was actually able to climb into the engine bay just to quickly.
I would have liked to have seen that.
And these are super cheap. They're about £1 each.
Oh wow! Okay,
so you need 8 of them. So
phew, thank God, because anything with engine misfiring, I'm like, that sounds expensive. But I couldn't believe actually, just from the pictures that you sent me, just how much of a difference it was making being upside down or the wrong way around.
Yeah, and just by turning it around, it's somebody's inattention at the critical point. Was the cause of that.
Well, fingers crossed. That does mean that my mysterious engine light should have disappeared. I'll be quite sad, because as I say, I sort of grew quite fond of it. But anyway, thank you for hopefully finding one. No matter what, you found an issue. So let's hope it clears that light once and for all.
Okay, so the final thing was the ball joints.
Right.
So when we drove the car, we could notice that there was a little bit of rattling going over bumps. I don't know whether you'd experienced that.
I don't know if I picked that up, to be honest, but I'm glad you spotted it.
But the hubs of the car are connected to the wishbones with these spherical joints called ball joints, and they're plain metal. You've got a ball inside rubbing against an outer race here. It's not lubricated, and it just wears out, and you get a bit of play in there. You obviously won't be able to pick it up in the video, but if I move that like that, you can feel the play. Very, very common. Replace these all the time. pretty much any car, unless it hasn't been driven at all, any 360 or 430 that comes through the door is going to need at least one of these during their service.
I actually remember when I came to buy the car, it was one thing that you and Harvey mentioned to me, is that the ball joints do tend to have issues, and that's one of the big reasons I went with the warranty package, which again we're going to talk about in 2 seconds, but yes, as you say, a kind of common issue.
Yes, it's just due to their design. They're actually designed for race cars, where actually longevity doesn't matter. It gives you very, very tight and taut steering and handling, but at the expense of wearing. So very, very common. We push them out, glue new ones in. We use Hill Engineering ball joints, which are stainless steel, so they're better than the OEM Ferrari ones, which are chrome-plated mild steel. Okay. And yeah, they're fitted on, and your car should be rattle-free.
Amazing. Thank you very much, mate. I appreciate it as always, and thanks for showing me and everyone around the work that you've been doing on the car.
I'm having more coffee because I just recorded an entire take without turning the microphone on, so clearly I need this. Anyway, you might be wondering, how much has all this work costed? Because that's what I've been thinking the last week or so. But I've got a lovely piece of paper with some numbers written down on it in the finest handwriting you've ever seen. So let's run through things. Now, when I bought this car from AV Engineering this time last year, Harvey and Aldous very luckily convinced me to take out a 3-year warranty package with VGS. Now, that has actually saved my bacon because the biggest and most expensive work that's been done on the car this week is covered by that warranty. So the AC compressor, the air conditioning compressor, £1,287 for that part, and 2 hours worth of work. The release bearing and the flange, the sort of gearbox bit, £318 for the release bearing, £285 for the flange. Okay, not horrific, but 10 hours of labour. Luckily, both of those covered by the warranty. Now, I did mention that the ball joint was covered in the warranty, but it's not. Ball joint failures are covered, not just generic wear and tear. So that was a cost to me, £155 each and 2 hours worth of labour. Inlet gasket, £1. Who says Ferraris are expensive to run? I do. It's on here. It's very expensive. 2 hours worth of labour to sort that, and then the gearbox linkage, only £50 for parts, but 4 hours worth of labour. So it does really eventually add up, and this is the big thing, is that yes, you can get into Ferraris these days for relatively affordable prices. It's not that easy to find Ferraris under 100 grand, but they do exist, as the 360 and the 430 in the back of the showroom that were pointed out in the vlog a few days ago. But the running costs are what can sometimes really bite you. And luckily, I got a ton of advice when I was looking at this car and throughout my ownership experience over the last year from the guys down here at AV. And if you are thinking about buying one of these cars or a similar S car, I really suggest you find experts like Harvey, like Aldous, that really know what to look for and what they're doing. Because I didn't think there was anything wrong with this car when I dropped it off. I thought it was running perfectly apart from the lovely engine light. But because of their attention to detail, they found little tiny things that could have ended up being catastrophic. Maybe not necessarily in the next week, but within the next year. Because fundamentally, there's not really a reason why I'd bring this car back before its service next year. So they want to make sure that the car will run perfectly and better than ever during that next 12-month period. So there's little things, ball joints, linkages and stuff like that will just improve the car and keep it hopefully relatively safe over the next 12 months. So I'm very grateful to them and also to the warranty package that they made me take out when I bought the car. Anyway, I hope you found today's video informative. Give it a thumbs up if you have. Make sure to follow AV Engineering on their various social media platforms. I'll put various links below, and make sure to stay subscribed for plenty more videos to come with this 360.